All right. Now I'm very excited to welcome Loud Esmond from Steer the Line to the Odds Breakers. You can listen to Loud on many places, such as SportsGrid, Steer the Line. Loud, thank you for coming on this show. We have a big NFL slate to talk about. How's this week shaping up for you?
Well, I got a number of premium plays behind the paywall over at Winners and Winers, where you can also get my stuff. Of course, we do the betting and the break show on Saturday and Sunday nights that, starts at 4:15 Pacific, 7:15 Easterns. And we sort of give some fresh looks at the late night college games and then the Sunday night football and Monday night football, because we all know what, bettors do. If they get hurt because they didn't win the morning and the afternoon games, they're going to the ATM and they're trying to get right on the late night games. And if they made money earlier in the day, yeah, sure, you're going to take it off the table. No, they always roll it into the next games. And so either we're going to help you.
Either way, they're betting.
Yeah. So either we're going to help you grow your bankroll or help you get well, as we say on that show. So that's just a few of the places where you can find me.
Cool stuff, man. Well, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you if they haven't watched you before?
So I've been sports betting since I was a teenager. I was an altar boy when I was younger, and my parents were older, and so they were sort of disconnected from what I was doing. And at 16, 17 years old, I used to say, hey, I've got the early mass and the late mass today, Mom and Dad, so I'll see you later tonight. And I would go get on a bus to Reno.
Yeah. Of course you did.
And I had a very lucrative paper route. So I would get on a bus to Reno and I'd get there before the NFL game started on Sunday. And I would pay bums to go place bets for me. So they'd go in and place the bets, and then they would come out and give me the ticket. And then I'd sit in a local diner and listen to the games on the radio. And then if I won, I'd go back to the bum and say, look, I'll give you 10%, go catch this ticket. And then I'd get on the Greyhound bus and go home.
That is hilarious. That was before you were 18 or 21, whatever the rule was at that time.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow. So you got in early. Yeah, there's a lot of people that filled out parlay cards that started early. I mean, I was also a teenager. I started myself with March Madness, filling out the brackets, and that's just kind of got me hooked. But at the same time, I make bets for friends, but then I really started doing it right when online gambling came out. And when I started going to Vegas more often too. It's like when sportsbook.com with Bodog, Five Dimes was there.
Oh yeah, that was big back in the day.
Absolutely. I love I miss Five Dimes. But anyways, man, that's cool.
I lived in inland Southern California for many years in San Bernardino County. And so I was a 2.5 hour drive from Vegas. So my wife and I actually used to go to Vegas quite a bit and take the kids when they were younger. Of course, I live in the Pacific Northwest now. I'm up in Washington State. And so here, it's an interesting thing in Washington State. There is no online gambling allowed. If you want to bet on sports, you have to go into one of the Native American brick and mortar casinos that have sports books and place a bet physically. So here it's the old school, you walk up to a window and place a bet, or there's kiosks inside. But that's the way you do legal sports betting in the state of Washington.
That's it. What a pain. It's funny. I'm in Arizona where it's like better than Las Vegas because we have a massive venue of stuff that they don't always allow in Vegas. So it's just so weird. I come from a state and I used to have to use the offshores and all that, hush, whatever, bookies and stuff. But,
well, in today's world of crypto, it's made it really easy if you want to skirt the law. And I'm sure there are people that do that. For me, because crypto is, made it virtually untraceable. And I'm sure that there are people that are doing that in states where it's not allowed. Tell me nobody's sports gambling in California, please. Right?
I know quite a few, man. I know quite a few in Cali, but that's cool. But you were very experienced and, love listening to you. I heard a couple of your shows. You're on with Gabe, so mutual right there with both of us. So it's great to finally get you on. Let's talk a little NFL then, my man. I always like to ask about underrated and overrated, because I want your take, and it doesn't mean you have a bet on them, or it doesn't mean you don't have a bet on this week. Maybe it's a bad week, bad spot, bad number, but a team you want to be on or want to fade in the future. You want to start with overrated.
So I like to look at, of all things, the record of teams against the spread. I mean, it sounds basic, but it really is a clue into what teams the books are overlooking. I mean, the Vikings have won twice as outright dogs, and they've covered every game. So maybe the books haven't quite figured them out yet, but I will say overrated first, the Bengals and the Texans. The Bengals, everybody thought of as a perennial playoff team. The Bengals are 2-3 against the spread. The Texans are 1-3-1, and those are both teams that I think are getting a lot more respect than they deserve. We can talk about the Texans-Patriots game later, but the Bengals and the Texans, I would say, are two teams that still are getting a lot more respect than I think they actually deserve.
Right, and I agree with you on the Bengals, and our listeners are going to find that out a little bit later, right. When we get to that game. I actually also see what you're saying with the Texans too, because I looked up. I have a good stat for you, just since the CJ Stroud era, I should say, on the Texans game as well. So that's some overrated ones. What about underrated?
The Broncos. The Broncos, I think people are still sleeping on. They're 4-1 against the spread. It's not pretty. It's not a pretty brand of football. It's not flashy. It's not exciting, but they're covering. And if you are doing sports betting to make money, which is why I do it, you don't care how pretty. You shouldn't care about style points. Is this team going to cash my ticket or not? And 4-1 against the spread, and the Broncos, I still think, are being ignored by a lot of sports bettors.
Yeah,
there's an opportunity
there. Yeah, I think there's some opportunity there as well. The Broncos now getting close to a 3 here, and it's partially reason you got Harbaugh coming off the bye. We'll get to that game, but I see exactly what you're talking about, with the Broncos here. So I agree with that. I think the Vikings, and I know you mentioned them, so maybe you disagree, but I think the Vikings might be at peak price point now.
Right. The books catch up. I'm just saying that, in a couple other teams, Commanders 4-1 against the spread. I'm not sure a lot of people saw that coming. Now they get the Ravens this weekend. Colts 4-1 against the spread. And I saw a crazy stat. The Colts 2 quarterbacks, Flacco, it was an NBC stat that I saw. Flacco is like the top quarterback in the league, given his sample size, and Anthony Richardson is the worst.
Dude, I love that stat, because on Monday on my show, I said I'm either betting the Colts if it's Flacco, or I'm betting against the Colts and betting the Titans if it's Richardson. It's looking like
that's exactly what I'm doing. It's the Flacco effect, I called it.
Because he's way better. It's not even and that's true numbers. I agree with you 100%. It's so weird with him. When are you going to figure out that you need to put Richardson on the shelf and have him learn from Flacco? People's like, oh, he needs his reps early. No, he doesn't. He was not ready out of college. He was a specimen. No. He was a specimen of freak, and he was not ready, was he?
No, he's very raw. Very raw. And he came from the Florida Gators, right?
Yeah, he came from the Gators, and he wasn't winning there. It's kind of like my thoughts when, Mitch Trubisky was drafted, from the North Carolina. I'm like, dude, he wasn't winning there, and he only played 1 year, and the Bears are throwing him. I thought the same thing with him,
So one of my best friends is a famous economist nationally. If I mentioned his name, people would know who I'm talking about, so I'm not going to. But he is a Gator fan because he graduated from Florida Gators. And I remember talking to him when Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, and he would text me and say, gee, this guy can't hit the broadside of a barn. How did you miss that receiver? He missed him by 7-8 yards. And yeah, he's a tremendous athlete, but he's not ready to be an NFL quarterback. And you can just tell by, you put Methuselah, Joe Flacco out there, and he's hitting receivers all over the field. And then you put Richardson out there and he's missing them by 5 or 6 yards.
Right.
And the team has a better chance to win with Flacco.
It does. A lot. I mean, you saw him throwing to Mo Alley Cox and some of those no-name guys, Alec Pierce last week, and you're
right. I'm like, who is that? I've never heard of that guy.
Right.
Maybe he should be on my fantasy football team because I suck right now.
Absolutely, man. And what's funny about overrated, underrated, it gets a little bit more convoluted too when it comes to all these injuries we're dealing with. I'm like, the Rams are properly rated with injuries, but the truth is they're way better than what we've seen. And they're such an injured team. And then, Miami with and without Tua is night and day.
Right.
And so I mean, obviously things get convoluted. We try to pick.
Well, look what happened to the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints were world beaters the first 2 weeks, and then they lose their center, they lose their right guard, they lose their left guard, they lose their right tackle. Literally, the only guy who was penciled in as a starter is a rookie left tackle who's left. They're on their third center who came off the Giants practice squad. And I think Taysom Hill was supposed to play that Deebo Samuel McCaffrey role that, that coaching tree came over, Kubiak, the offensive coordinator that came over from the Niners as an assistant. Right. And it doesn't work when you don't have the players to do it. And Taysom Hill in the first 2 games, every time they put him in, he'd gain 7, 8, 10 yards. He was like a first down machine. And he went out and they lost their offensive line, and it all has gone to absolute S ever since.
Absolute S. I mean, I don't even know how to properly relate.
And now there's no Derek Carr.
I have to downgrade some. I don't know how. Although Derek Carr was on his Derek Carr slope, that you see him do great, and then he just dies. He was on his way to being overrated anyway, right? But then now we got a new kid coming in. Does it give the team a bump? I'm not so sure about it. We'll get to that game, obviously. But my problem with Cleveland is I have them so injured that I don't know where they are when they're not injured. It's like hard to keep minusing this team. It's just crazy how bad they're underperforming. Yet, are they the worst team in the league? I don't have them down as far as Carolina yet. Maybe I should. I struggle.
Deshaun Watson is terrible. I mean, have you ever seen, I've seen golfers who get a case of the yips and their career is over. They can never get their swing back. There's been multiple famous players that were really good and they lost their swing and they never got it back and they just disappeared from the PGA. Now, I have never seen a football player fall farther in terms of ability than Deshaun Watson, except in case of injury where they just can't play again, right? But Deshaun Watson went from being an all-star MVP candidate to now in Cleveland, he may be the worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, him and the kid on the Panthers, Bryce Young. But he's terrible. And I think the team has quit, not on the coach and not on the organization. I think they've quit on Deshaun Watson. And if they try to move off of him, his dead cap space the last 2 years, if they cut him, is $179 million. I mean,
it's guaranteed money.
Yeah. If they cut him, they take a cap hit the next year of $179 million. That would make their payroll roughly 50 or 60 million bucks for the entire team.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot believe how far this man has fell. You know, he's got some mental issues, and you can see with all the stuff trouble he's gotten into, it's gone. It's a lot deeper than it was. Stefanski's only shot here, because they're just so far in depth with this guy, is, and I don't know if he has tried this already, call Dabo Sweeney and say, dude, I'll fly you up here. I'll give you some money, whatever. Please come and talk to this dude, or tell me what to say to this dude, because that's the last time he really won. You know, I mean, he won a little bit in Houston, but that defense was so bad. He also choked to the Kansas City Chiefs in that playoff game. So, you know, you remember that. But talk to one of his coaches and see, dude, is there a way to get through to this dude, or are we just screwed for the next 2 or 3 years, right?
There is one guy who, in terms of ability and first getting onto the scene and then becoming an absolute mess, that I remember being reclamated, and that was Jim Plunkett with the Raiders. Remember, he played with the 49ers and I think the Patriots and a couple other teams. He had won the Heisman Trophy. He was okay the first couple of years, and then he was just so physically and mentally beaten down for the next 6-8 years. Al Davis, when he brought him into the Raiders, he made him sit for a year. He said, you need to just get mentally and physically well. You're not suiting up. You're not practicing. You can watch and you can be around the team, but you're a mess. And Plunkett literally sat and did not play for a season. And then they sort of started slowly bringing him back. And he was supposed to be a backup quarterback to, I forget the guy's name, Dan Pastorini, who got his leg broken in like the 4th game. And then you know the rest. Plunkett came back. He was physically restored. He was mentally restored. And he won a couple Super Bowls. But I think you have to do something radical with Deshaun Watson at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is, because they're just so in for the money too. It's like what rat? And I thought I was thinking radical when I said bringing his ex-coach. You know, I just don't know what to do with them, and that's a problem. Yeah, we'll get to that game, but within the sake of time, let's get into some games. Now, unfortunately, this podcast airs on Friday morning, so there's really nothing to say with the Niners and the Seahawks. I know there might be some live viewers there. Anything just real quick before we just move on?
49ers and Seahawks, I think, over the 49. They both score on average 24 and 25 points. And, you know, the offenses get better as the season goes along. The Seahawks have multiple major injuries on defense, and the 49ers defense is a shell of what it was. They're both middle of the road at best. Primetime game, I think they both score a little more than their averages, and that goes over.
Yeah, I wouldn't go under. I wouldn't go under that game with the way Seattle has shown. Weather should be okay tonight, I believe.
Yeah,
it's always
clear.
A check per se. Yeah, in Seattle, you got to check that constantly.
Right. I know I'm 90 miles. I'm 90 miles south of Seattle, so I'm not that far away.
Yeah, you're the man that we should be calling and be like, is the weather correct? What do you think, buddy? What do you think, Rob?
I can tell you.
Yeah, he'll tell you exactly what's going on. No, that's true. And yeah, I have a small lean to the Niners, but it's not. The 3.5 scares me a little bit. It's the NFL. It's the league that keeps things close. So I'm probably passing on this game. I did release a TikTok prop on TikTok for this game, though. So if anybody's watching live and wants to get that, we're 9-2 in TikTok props. Jaguars Bears. We have the early game in London. You know, some Jaguars money keeps kind of coming in now, because now it's Bears only -1.5. Totals 44.5. It looks like someone hit the Jaguars of respect. What is your thoughts on this game?
Well, the Jaguars are obviously usually more comfortable in London than anybody else. It's sort of a home away from home for them. But because of the weather, their flight was massively delayed. They're going to get into London late Friday night. So they're like a full day behind their regular schedule. The Bears score on average 22 points a game. The Jaguars are only scoring 19, and the Bears defense is better. So I would lean moneyline Bears here is what if I was going to do a play on this game. I generally don't play the London games because London games and Thursday night games and Mexico City or Panama, wherever the hell they're going to play the next foreign game, Germany, I think. It just, you get strange outcomes in those games. So I generally would stay away from it. But if I was going to go anywhere, I'd go Bears money line.
Yeah, absolutely. Bears is what I did bet on the money line. Now I'm kind of mad that I see the better number than I got, and so I like the Bears on the money line. I was kind of thinking that this should be a close game, though. I am worried about a few things with the Bears. A couple of injuries like Jaquan Brisker, their one of their best corners there. They have a safety that's banged up. A couple offensive linemen. Now, if you compare their injuries to the rest of the league, Loud, it's not nearly as bad. So I'm not freaking out here, but I could see Josh Allen getting to young Caleb Williams, who holds the ball a little bit long. I think the Bears win. I have the Bears as the better team. My metrics actually say it should be bigger than this, but I also think it's a close one. So I was considering teasing back, but if this thing's going to keep going down, I'm not going to be able to have an opportunity. I have to wait till game day for this situation, but I'll stick with my lean to the Bears. Houston Texans versus New England Patriots. Now this is down to 6.5 now with a total of 38. So interesting line move on this one, Loud. What thoughts do you have on this? Do you have a play or a lean?
Yeah, so the Texans defense has not been great. The Texans offense has not been great. Stephon Diggs, is there a milk carton with him on it somewhere? Because I haven't seen him since last season when he left the Bills. And look, everybody's saying this is the wrong spot to put the rookie quarterback in. Why don't you wait a week when you're playing a worse team than the Texans, who have a pretty good pass rush? Well, okay, so we're not in that building, and they are. So I don't believe that teams make decisions like this impulsively. Now, like the Jets ownership just acted impulsively, but I don't believe that the Patriots ownership and front office and coaching staff acts impulsively. So I'm betting that they see something in Drake May that they're seeing in practice, that they're seeing him mature in, and that they're seeing problems with Jacoby Brissett that they think Drake May will do better. That's the only reason why you put him in, especially in this spot. So I'm going to take the points with New England, who has a great defense. And the Texans have been very disappointing. They've been crap against the spread. So, I lean the Patriots here with the points. I might buy it up to 7 if it's 6.5.
Okay. You might buy it up to 7. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. So I think that this is a spot for the Patriots. And I do like Drake May. I think Drake May is one of those guys that has the legs to run the ball when he needs to. And he's been pretty smart out there, making good decisions. I saw that preseason. I mean, very good in North Carolina. At one point, Drake May was going to be the number 1 pick, or him and Caleb were kind of back and forth. They were comparing him a lot to Bryce Young.
And they were all wrong, because the number 1 pick should have been Jaden Williams, right? Should have been Jaden Daniels.
Right now, it should have been Jaden Daniels.
Right.
It's still early, but as a Bears fan, it's tough for me to say that. But at the same time, I'm still happy with what Caleb Williams is doing.
Right.
It's just early. And I will say Cliff Kingsbury has been killing it as an offensive coordinator over there.
Yeah.
And that's what that man is. He's an offensive coordinator. The Bears got Shane Waldron, which is kind of the dumps from Seattle. So I'm not sure that's been a good match.
Hey, I hear Nathaniel Hackett's going to be available.
I'm sure he will. But I'm not paying him.
I'm just saying.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will be available soon too, because he can come right with Hackett in that situation. Then he can definitely find his way.
Maybe the problem wasn't Robert Saleh, whose defense has been number 1 in the league the past couple of years.
I would say so. Maybe it's not Robert Saleh. I complained about that a little bit. I was kind of like, well, you know what? You gave Saleh, you gave him Hassan Reddick, who you traded a massive draft picks for, and he's not playing because
one of the worst run organizations in NFL is the Raiders. And looking back on what they did to Derek Carr, and then ended up firing the coach anyway, And they ended up getting nothing for Derek Carr, not a third-round pick, nothing. And they have to turn to Aiden O'Connell this weekend. Oh, my Lord. If there's a worse quarterback situation in the NFL, probably the Browns and the Panthers, but the Raiders are right there.
The agony,
in quarterback hell.
It's bad. One thing I'm saying about the Texans is if you look since the CJ Stroud era, they were favorites 5 times on the road. 5 times. They are 1 for 4 as road favorites. I saw them choke all over themselves when they played Minnesota. Now, I know Minnesota is a better team, but Nico Collins was their best receiver. It is not Diggs. Diggs is a head case. I'm guessing he's a head case in that locker room that nobody's hearing about right now. I took the Patriots +7. I like it still at +6.5, just not as much. But this would be one of my official plays with the Patriots here, and I think that this is one of those shockers that people, at the end of the day, are like, "Wow, I never saw the Patriots keeping up with the Texans." Right? I think this is one of them.
Yeah, agreed.
Next one, Commanders Ravens. Funny enough, I just saw this being released by a larger group, and the Ravens are now up to -7. And the total's 51.5. Funny, this was kind of creeping down till -6.5, but it never really got there. Maybe, or -6, I should say, from 6.5. But it's weird to see the Commanders after how well they've been doing. There's no metric in the world that says the Commanders should be this big of dogs if you just look at this season. But if you look at what these teams should be, then you start getting up there a little bit. What are you going to believe? What you've seen on paper here? Or are you going to believe what these teams should be? That's kind of where this is at. And I didn't make a play on this. And I'm probably going to stay away and just enjoy it. But maybe you have something better for me.
I have a premium pick on winners and whiners on the total because I have a really strong feeling about the total in this game and did some research and I can back it up. If I was to pick a side in this game, what's the number now?
The number is 6.5. Or no, sorry. The number's 7 now. It was 6.5 at 7 now.
Oh, I can't believe it's going that direction because look, you cannot, and this is where the betting public makes mistakes. They go, oh, it's Ohio State. They must be, it's Oklahoma. They must be great. Well, They're not looking at who they are this year, right? I mean, who are they really? Oh, it's the Commanders. The Commanders stink. And it's the Ravens. The Ravens are great. The Ravens defense is bad right now. They are the worst defense in the league against the pass. 32nd.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. They it's not an opinion. They are 32 out of 32 teams against the pass. Jaden Daniels could torch them. The guy's throwing dimes all over the field, and he can run. He is a younger, lighter version with a better passing accuracy than Lamar Jackson. And he can throw the ball inside the numbers, outside the numbers. Now, Lamar put on a fantastic performance last week against the Bengals. But he also had some kind of Lamar moments where he fumbled a couple of snaps. And that game, honestly, the Bengals should have won that game. When they got that fumble, when the hike hit Lamar, the hike hit Lamar in the chest and he fumbled the ball away and they picked it up and they got it all the way down to the 40. Then they ran the ball 3 straight times, gained no yardage, and then they had a bad snap and he misses the field goal. So they honestly should have lost that game, and they got absolutely shredded by Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase had almost 200 yards in receiving. Jaden Daniels, look, I'm not predicting this, but would I be shocked if the Commanders beat the Ravens? The Ravens lost to the Raiders.
It's bad.
3 weeks ago. So, honestly, 2 of the best-looking teams in the league to me right now are total shockers to the betting public. The Vikings and the Commanders. Neither one was expected to do anything. But you can't get caught. The public does. You can't get caught in thinking about what teams were supposed to be.
Absolutely.
You are what your record says you is. Right?
You know, you had 5-week sample size here. Now, just to elaborate on that, you know, the official Clark, he's a little bit more of a way type official there. So I was kind of looking at that side anyway. Now that it's at a 7, man, yeah, that's a great time to jump into this market if you like that. So it sounds like Loud likes this one. So I'm guessing we should put this one down for Loud. So sometimes when you have a play and you're passionate about it, you know, the cat's out of the bag. Let's move on to the next game. And by the way, there is a plenty of Patriots +7, 115. That's where we're going to score it. Minus 115 at +7. So that's, I think you should shop around and find that one. So let's move on to a disgusting game. The Browns and the Eagles. And we just talked about Deshaun Watson. You know, this thing's all the way up to 9.5 in 10 in some books. I'll call it 9.5 since I'm looking at DK right now. But it's also got a low total of 42.5. What gives here, man? What's it going to take, Loud, for Cleveland to do anything?
Well, that says that the bookmakers believe that the Browns are going to get blown out. Because if you're going to be under and make them a 9.5-point dog, the only way that works is if basically the Browns don't score or score 10. Now, here's the problem for the Browns. The Eagles are coming off a bye, and they're getting healthy. The Browns have shown me absolutely nothing. And they're wounded on defense. And I think the offense is sick and tired of Deshaun Watson because they can't win with him and they know it. And he's getting a third of the entire salary cap of the team.
Insane.
And he's absolutely terrible. So
he should be paying his team members. That's what he should be doing.
Yeah, he should basically be taking his paycheck every week and, you know, giving 2/3 of it back because he's terrible. Look, I can't make any case for the Browns, period. And the Eagles have had their dysfunctions this year, but there was some good quotes from the quarterback about getting along better with the coach, and they're on the same page now, and things are good, and they're getting all those receivers back this week. I think the Eagles are going to blow them off the field.
And that's possible. You know, it's just crazy that any dog +5.5 or larger is 19-4 against the spread. It's just the NFL's equalizing itself so much. They want close games. They're getting close games. That's the scary part about taking these dogs. But man, it's just an interesting situation. I want to see Wills back on offensive tackle, and I want to see Conklin back for this team, and Zinter too. Zinter should play. Otherwise, this team is in some serious trouble again because the Eagles, with a defense like they have that's better than it was last year, with a much better defensive coordinator, Fangio, I think that, you know, Watson could be in some serious trouble. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Cardinals at the Packers, and the Packers are -5, total 47. Loud, what do you have for us on this spread? It feels like in nowhere land between the 3 and the 6.
Look, I don't have a strong take on this game, but it is we're going to get to the beer money bets, and this figures in those for me. The Packers don't look right. They just haven't looked good all season. And the problem with the Cardinals is the Garden Gnome at quarterback for them can run like Bugs Bunny or the Roadrunner. He's a cartoon character. It makes me nuts watching him play because I'm like, what? 55-yard touchdown. What? And you know, you just never know when Murray's just going to go off. I remember watching him play a game against the Raiders a couple of years ago, and they were down like 24 points in the middle of the third quarter, and he ran for like 3 scores. There was like one play where he like did, you know, a couple figure eights in the backfield and then ran for a 35-yard touchdown. It was like watching, you know, the Three Stooges play football against the Roadrunner. Like I said, it was crazy. And so he can go off, and if he does, then, you know, they can beat anybody. the Cardinals are one of the most maddening teams to watch in the NFL because they could be great and they could be awful.
Without a doubt, man. The Cardinals are, you're biting your fingers constantly on this team because Kyler Murray can be just so on and so off in these situations. I have a premium play on this. I believe that there is going to be a side in this. I can't really talk too much about it.
Got it.
But I'm going to have to pass on it and move on to the Bucks and the Saints. And this is kind of sitting at a hard, the Saints +3, a hard 3 at -102, and then obviously the soft 3 if you want to lay with the Bucks at -118. But we're going to call it 3. And the total is at 41. You alluded to this game, Loud. What do you think about this one?
I'm a Derek Carr fan, and I feel so bad for the guy because they looked like world beaters the first 2 weeks, and then Taysom Hill goes out, and their offensive line gets absolutely obliterated by injury. And last week against the Chiefs, he had no chance. I mean, there was just a sieve, people coming right up the middle, and he had no chance at all. And so now they're going to roll Spencer Rattler out there, who's never played a game in the NFL and frankly was a question mark playing in college. I mean, his career in college didn't exactly look great. He had that one good year in South Carolina, I think it was. The Saints in the last 3 games have scored 12, 24, and 13 after opening the season scoring 44 and 41. The Bucs are averaging 25 points per game. They're perfectly comfortable playing the Saints wherever. They don't care if this is in the dome. They beat the Saints regularly. I can't do anything but take the Buccaneers in this.
Yeah, man. I took the Bucs as this was happening, and I can say that now because it's at 3. It's at -2. The big scare is obviously if this Rattler's for real. But dude, I saw Rattler in college. I didn't think that much of him. And sometimes you don't do as well in college, and all of a sudden you hit the NFL and you're like, wow, this guy's really an NFL quarterback. There's a couple examples of that, over the last couple of years. Guys coming out of college that are just like, you didn't think that was going to be that great, and then you're like, holy cow. He's actually more of an NFL. Yeah. There's a few of those guys out right now. Jordan Love, is one of those. Of course, he sat a few years, but he developed pretty good. I mean, definitely that situation. And then you got your guys like Deshaun Watson that came into the NFL and looks terrible. Mitch Trubisky, that whole draft class until Patrick Mahomes, obviously. But yeah, man, I think the over could be good because it's getting low enough now, 41, where the Bucs defense is still highly suspect. And if Rattler's a rookie gunslinger, you can see a pick 6 here. You can see him fumble. I still lean to the Bucs pretty strong at the 3, though. I will say that. But the 41, I'm also going to lean to the over. How about Colts Titans? And this is kind of creeping up too, now to -3, total of 43. What are your thoughts on this one?
Colts are 4-1 against the spread. I'm worried that they're going to put Anthony Richardson back in. That's what I'm waiting to see. If it's Flacco, I'm on the Colts. The Titans are 1-3 against the spread, and the coach and the quarterback don't like each other. I'm not sure. It's not so much that Will Levis doesn't like the coach. You can tell the coach doesn't like Will Levis. And so that's a problem. You've got a chemistry problem on the team. And if Flacco is starting, I'd be all over the Colts in this one.
I'm taking the Titans, and it's because we see Anthony Richardson is completely healthy now, had full practice. He's going to start because that's how ridiculous they are. They almost feel probably embarrassed. Now, will he be on a short leash, and will Flacco come in the third quarter or fourth quarter and backdoor you? That's very possible. If you see Flacco in this game, you better buy back. Is all I gotta say.
Right.
Because the way this guy can come back and the way this guy is rolling is fantastic. But there's a lot of -2.5, -115s, and that's all I'm going to grade it right here. I'm taking the Titans here. On DraftKings, it's -302, but you got to have more arts on there. There's actually more 2.5s in the marketplace than 3s. So we're going to take a minus 2.5 at 115 just because of that. And not only that, they're, and Pittman's out, their best receiver, and Jonathan Taylor's looking to still be out. You got to remember that they lost their best pass stuffer or run stuffer, in the middle of the defense there. So that's really important. DeForest Buckner, I was trying to think of his name. But, Pittman's not going to play most likely. Josh Downs didn't practice on Thursday, so that's another receiver. Kwity Paye is questionable. What are their good defensive ends and pass rushers?
Well, the good news is for me, I'm off the hook because I said this is dependent on Flacco starting. So you can just forget everything I said about the game.
Dependent on Flacco, and that's a great thing to say because I agree with you. If I found out Flacco's playing, I'm running the window. Especially in a live betting situation, because he will come back. It's not that he could come back; he will come back. And Richardson, they're just putting him in to save embarrassment, being that he was the 4th pick of the draft. I hate it when teams do that. Sometimes you just got to admit when you're wrong. Let's move on to the next game. Chargers Broncos plus 2.5, total 35.5. I'll start here, Loud. I'm just teasing the Broncos. Now, the Broncos are much better against the spread. They're a better team than people think. The reason I'm not taking them is because they're actually about to go down 2 scores against the Raiders, and the Raiders threw the pick six. It was a 14-point swing in that game.
Right.
And it tied it up. And then they grab momentum, and then they should have been chasing in that game. And Bo Nix is still a rookie. I think the Broncos are a little bit better than what the market says they are, but I'm still saying that I'm afraid of Jim Harbaugh. I fear that man. I fear that man after a bye week, and I fear the fact that he's getting both of his tackles back and Justin Herbert's in this game. So I'm teasing the Broncos with a teaser, and I'll give you my other leg next.
So the Broncos and Chargers allow the least points of any 2 teams in the NFL, and I'm taking the over. And this is why. The over is low at 35.5. The Broncos started to figure it out on offense. Bo Nix is getting more comfortable. And you got the Chargers coming off a bye, getting both their tackles back, and Justin Herbert will be healthy-ish. And he was compromised in the last couple games that he played. So, 35.5 means if this ends, 21-17, 24-14, you're over. So that's the play that I see here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It's getting too low. I'm sorry, the NFL is going to want some points.
Low. Yeah.
You're going to get a situation where they're going to almost force penalties in this game if it's too slow. I think the NFL knows where they get their ratings, fantasy football and things like that. It's too low. And the Broncos defense isn't quite as good as what they're playing, but neither is the Chargers defense. I hope it's not that ugly. I'm going to lean to the over still, though. I don't want to quite take it yet because Harbaugh will sit on the ball if needed. How about this? Another terrible game. Steelers, Vegas, Raiders plus 3, total 36.3. Aiden O'Connell was announced as the starter. I can't lay 3 or more with the Steelers. I just can't. I'm sorry. That is not the way they play football. Justin Fields is also a firecracker. That's very, they're favorites against Dallas last week, and they kind of got beat, man. I mean, a very injured Dallas team they could not move the ball against. I'm staying away. I pass. Do you have something better?
There's nothing to like about the Raiders, and there's nothing to like about taking the Steelers -3. So I have a way of looking at my sports betting, and one of my rules is I don't really like betting games where you have a bad team against a bad team because you have no idea what's going to happen in those games. The thing here that I would be, if I was to take a side, it would be the Steelers minus the points because I just think the Raiders are that much worse. And what I would be hoping for as a bettor is I would actually be betting on the Steelers defense to score. Right. A pick six, a scoop and score, or a couple of short fields because they sack Aiden O'Connell and strip the ball and they get it at the 3 or, whatever. That's how I see this ending up in a -3 for the Steelers is their defense scoring.
Right.
And maybe more than once.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It would be their defense scoring. I mean, Crosby's still a beast, but he's going to start getting sick of this too. You know, he was kind of said if Adams goes, I go, and there is some just dysfunction. I thought the team fighting for Antonio Pierce's job was a bad idea because he's not ready to be a football coach last year, and they beat the Denver Broncos at the end by bad, and they're like, oh, let's hire Pierce. You know, it's like you got the team motivated, but he still made some boneheaded decisions. He already made boneheaded decisions this year. I'm staying away from this game far.
Yeah.
I could see it going over too. It's just one that I don't like. Here's another one: Lions, Cowboys. Cowboys +3. It's almost flat now. Total is 52. This was 3.5 earlier in the week. What do you have for us on this one, Loud?
I've got a side bet behind the paywall at Winners and Winers, so it's one of my best bets of the week. The side bet on this, so I can't talk about that. The total in this is over under 52. If each team scores their average, you get to 49. Now, we know in the NFL, the offenses struggle early in the year and defense is ahead of them because offense is more complicated than defense, and we don't do preseason like we used to. A lot of teams don't play their starters or they don't play them very much, and so the offense is still kind of figuring it out the first 2-3 weeks of the season. So I think these teams are going to score 10, 15, 20% better than their average, and that puts you over in this game. And it's prime time in a dome.
Over. All right. Well, I like it. I don't think Parsons will play yet. He did not practice Wednesday. I made a play in this, and it was a better number. It was a real 3.5, or it was either that or -115. -115. I think it was actually, now I'm thinking -115. I think the Cowboys being at home here in this situation can keep it close, but I'm not taking a 3. I think my number is 3. I think this is a good number, and the Cowboys just don't seem to beat the good teams. You know, they always falter against the good teams. It's almost like, sorry, my phone's going up. It's almost like they beat the crap out of the bad teams and just lose all the time against good ones. It's kind of a good spread. I know this is like a semi-revengey spot for the Lions, if you remember that terrible call from the ref that literally cheated them, because the guy came up to that same ref and said, I'm reporting at this, and then the ref runs the other way, like almost like he planned it. It was just really weird, and then he calls it. It's like, dude, I just came up to you, dude. What happened? I'm still frustrated about that one. I think my money line sprinkle went off on that one, but that was just absolutely insane last year. And so you can look at it the way you want, but I don't like it at 3. I liked it at 3.5, and that's gone, and that's life. Let's move on to the next one. Falcons, Panthers. Falcons -6, total 47. Believe it or not, there's a tiny bit of Panthers money that entered the market. I don't know why. I think they signed a few guys on defense off practice squads to try to cover up all their issues. A lot of non-participants this week. Clowney, Ashawn Robinson didn't play. You know, they lost some of their best players. Shaq Thompson, DJ Woonem. I mean, this is still a terrible team. Adam Thielen. What do you think about this disgusting game?
I'm staying away from it. I'm not really quite sure what to make of the Falcons yet. The Panthers, with Andy Dalton at quarterback, are a little bit better, but I don't know. I mean, this one's a mystery to me.
It's a mystery because the way they got beat last week at the Bears too. It's like you figure that they got to just kind of suck in and have some dignity, but then you have Atlanta with the extra rest coming in, but they're laying 6-point road favorite in a division game like this. I mean, I'm still going to lean Atlanta. I think my numbers really still favor Atlanta, but you're getting up to the point where how many points do you want to lay in a league that wants to keep games close? So that's my fear in this situation. Let's move on, Loud. Bengals, Giants, the night game. Giants +3.5, total 47.5. I mean, I already let my cat out the bag earlier. I'm taking the Giants. I've taken them at +3.5. I know that they still have some injury issues. Neighbors isn't completely off the IR. But I think he still can be because he's in stage 3 right now. He had the extra week too, unless he's really that messed up. But what I do like about the Giants is they're just playing good football now. Something changed there with Dayball. He's doing some weird stuff. I heard like yelling in the huddles and everything. He's doing all this stuff. But man, the way they spanked Seattle, they should have beat Seattle by a lot more because there was a 14-point swing in that with the fumble in the end zone by Tracy, I believe. And, do you need Devin Singletary when Tracy's playing that well? Because the rest of the game, Tracy was awesome. Now, I know Seattle's defense isn't that good, but we're looking at a Bengals defense that's one of the worst statistically in the freaking league. And now, does the Giants' loss to the Vikings look that bad?
No.
Nah, it really doesn't, man. And the Bengals coming off the way they lost that game last week, they're kind of questioning themselves a little bit. And, I hope Thibodeau plays. He's probably not. I guess he's week to week, but they have a few other pass rushers in this on this defense. I think it could be a tougher environment for Burrow. I take the 3.5. I don't have this. I think I have this closer to pick 'em out.
The Bengals are 1-4, right?
Yeah, the Bengals are 1-4.
Okay, so their season's basically over. The chance, once you take 4 losses out of 5, the chances that you make the playoffs are like single digits.
We know that. Do the players look at it that way? That's always the thing I'm trying to figure out, right?
Well, they gave everything they had in that game against the Ravens and lost in an absolutely emotionally gutting way. And it is really hard for teams, even professional sports guys, to get up for the next game after that. And if you saw Flacco's body language and how he sounded in the post-game press conference, he said, "We're not a winning team. We're not even." Yeah, I'm sorry, Burrow. My bad. I've got gray hair, so I'm allowed. So his body language looked terrible. He looked deflated. He looked horribly depressed. Man, how you get up for this game against the Giants. I'm not saying the Bengals might not win this game, but I'm not laying any points with the Bengals. I'm with you. I would take the Giants. The Giants looked like a light bulb turned on for them last week. And it couldn't just – I don't think it's just that the Seahawks were bad on defense. I think they found a little something. And now they're going to get Malik Neighbors back. So, they're at home. And the Bengals have to travel after that horrible loss against the Ravens. No, I can't take the Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals might have some injury issues. Chase Brown's banged up. He was added to the injury report on Thursday as a limited because of his quadriceps. So he was one of their good running backs. And Zach Moss was already hurt, and he's just a limited participant. So it's not good when your running backs are hurt. Gesicki is also limited. But they also lost some guys throughout the season, like DJ Ivey, their cornerback, Dax Hill. He was placed on IR a couple days ago. Their best corner, dude. I mean, their guard, Kirkland, was placed on IR. They're not only bad, they're banged up. And I just don't see a lot of hope for this team. And I think they're mentally defeated too. And you have a Giants team that's, feeling hot right now. You'd think it might be a letdown spot, but I don't know. They beat Seattle. It's more Cincinnati has to get up after just embarrassing themselves against the Ravens. I can see this locker room being all messy too. I love this play at 3.5. I think it's my favorite play. So
yeah, I have a college play that's very similar to this in that Cal was leading Miami by 21 points in the fourth quarter and ended up losing in the last few seconds by 1 point. And 39-38 was the final score in that game. They had NFL Game Day in Berkeley for the first time in like 30 years. All this national attention and fanfare, and then they barfed all over themselves in the fourth quarter. And now they've got to travel to Pitt who is 5-0 against the spread and 5-0 straight up. And I do not have much hope. I believe that line is only 3 also. So there's an NCAA football game. Sorry. Yeah. California at Pitt -3. I'm all over Pitt for the same reason I'm all over the Giants. I think the team is depleted emotionally, mentally, physically drained after giving everything they could in a game. And now they have to travel and go on the road. And I don't like either team for those reasons.
Yeah. Yep. I actually, I have them written down. I got to find the 3 though, myself, but we'll get to a quick college play here too. But yeah, the Giants, it's a similar situation. It's just a deflating spot, you should say, for the Bengals. Monday Night Football, Bills, Jets. Jets home dogs +2.5, total 41. Aaron Rodgers, the drama king, is back and getting coaches fired. Now, people say he wasn't involved. I don't know what to believe. He lied, about other things.
I don't believe him at all. I'm sorry. Look, it's his hand-picked off. Now, but here's what's weird about this, okay? So think about this. The backstory that I've heard is Saleh went to the owner and said, I have to fire Nathaniel Hackett.
That's what I heard too.
And the owner called Aaron Rodgers and says, heads up, we're going to fire Nathaniel Hackett. And he said, hell no, are you going to fire Nathaniel Hackett? And so it was in Saleh's contract that he gets to hire and fire his assistants. So in order to stop him from firing Hackett, they fired him. Because if he decided to fire Hackett, there's nothing they could do to stop him contractually. So they had to chop his head off to stop him. And now, however, the first thing the interim coach did was demote Nathaniel Hackett to not calling the plays as the offensive coordinator. Yep. So how does that work? I would put this under not well thought out.
Not at all. I hate to say it, but the Jets are my teaser leg. And it's because whenever there's a coach firing, there's a bump. Even though
right.
Even though it's so freaking weird, I don't trust them at 2.5. The Bills are getting some guys back. You think Shakir might play, but he didn't practice today. James Cook also didn't practice. So I'm actually okay. I mean, the Jets side is looking better and better. I think the Bills, after losing 2 in a row, though, to the Ravens and then Houston, the way they lost that, is it deflating for them? No, the coach screwed that up. Threw the ball 3 times. It's like you could have forced overtime there. What are you doing? I ranted about that game because Houston actually screwed up right before that. But anyways, I just think it's a closer game being in New York. And Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't have a lot left in the tank, but there's going to be some games where you see him looking like this and looking like this. That's what happens to stars when they retire. They'll have one of those 2 or 3 great games, and then they'll just disappear completely. I can see a great game from Rodgers here in this situation. They know these teams know each other. Yeah, it's a coaching bump situation. I'm going to lean to +2.5, but I'm happy with just partnering them with the Broncos there, Loud.
Right.
Good stuff, man. Well, that is the slate of NFL games. Can you recap the plays that you are giving out for this one?
Yeah. Okay. So 49ers, Seahawks over 49, Jaguars, Bears, Bears money line, Cardinals. This is not a big play for me, but if I was going to play Cardinals, Packers, I'd be on the Cardinals +4.5. Texans, Patriots, we're both taking the 7 with New England. Browns, Eagles, I think, stay away. I think the Eagles crush them. It's -9.5 Eagles. Buccaneers at Saints. I can't make any play for the Saints. They lost their starting quarterback. They've lost 4 out of 5 guys on their starting offensive line. They're starting a 3rd-string guy who was on somebody else's practice squad at center. The Colts were split. Actually, we're not now because Flacco isn't starting, so I think we're both on.
Did you say the Saints don't have a center?
The Saints are on their 3rd-string center.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And the center that they have was, I believe, on the Giants practice squad 2 weeks ago.
Right. Okay. All right. That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah. Because they lost Lemieux, McCoy, and Ruiz is questionable. Was actually a guard. They play some center. Yeah. And Lucas
Right.
Patrick, their guard, is questionable too. Okay. Just
Right.
wanted. Sorry to stop you.
Yeah. No problem. Broncos, Chargers, over 35.5. Steelers, Raiders don't really have a play. I'd lean Steelers -3. Lions, Cowboys over 52. Bengals at Giants, Giants +3.5. Bills, Jets, Monday Night Football pass.
All right, good stuff. And I'll recap our plays at the end of the show. Let's go. Let's talk about some beer bet bangers here, man. This is just like something you put beer money on. It could be a long shot. Usually we want plus money, but what do you have for us, Loud?
Giants at home +160 to win outright against the Bengals.
Okay, that's fair enough. Giants +1. Where is it? +150?
I thought it was 160 where I saw it.
It's Giants +1. It's 150 right now, so okay. That's a good number. Yeah. I think it was 160 earlier in the week in some books, though. So that's a great number there for the Giants to win outright. So it's almost like, hey, most likely team to win outright. Big shocker here. I'm going to go with something very similar to what you said. I'm going with the Patriots to win outright against the Texans. I gave you that.
I thought about that. And then the other one that I could see happening is Cardinals +200 winning outright at the Packers. If Kyler Murray shakes loose a couple times, he can down any team.
Yeah, Kyler Murray is that firecracker that's going to either lose by a lot or win by a lot. So I could see what you're saying there for a money line, kind of one of those erratic situations here. Patriots are +235, so that's where I'm going to go with my beer bet banger. And before we go, Loud, anything you like for college football you want to throw out real quick?
The Army Black Knights are crushing everything in front of them. They are giving up the least points in the entire NCAA, and they are last week they won by like 50 and they were favored by like 22. They're playing UAB. UAB is allowing 36.8 points per game. They are ranking among the worst in the nation. The Blazers can't stop the run, which will be even worse against Army, who does nothing but run the ball down your throat. Army's defense, like I said, staggeringly low, allowing 13 points per game. UAB averages 22 points per game under the best circumstances. Army averages scoring 38 points per game. Can you imagine Army and Navy both going undefeated and then playing in that Army-Navy game, and one of them would end up going to the playoff? I would love to see a service academy in the playoff.
I would too. That would be freaking awesome. Please bring Army into the playoffs and mess up some of those lives. Having those big name teams have to prepare for the triple option all week long. That would just be hilarious, Loud. Well, great stuff. He likes Army. You also talked a little bit about Pitt, obviously, against Cal in a terrible spot for Cal. Where can our listeners and viewers get your wonderful information in place?
All right, so they can see me on this Steer the Line show, which airs in Southern California on terrestrial radio, but is also available at YouTube at Steer the Line YouTube. And then my premium picks you can find at Winners and Winers. And then we do the Betting in the Break show on the Winners and Winers YouTube channel, 4:15 Pacific, 7:15 Eastern on Saturday and Sunday nights, getting you ready to bet on the late games and either get right because you're down or grow your bankroll because you're up. And we're going to try to get you on that show soon.
All right, man. Well, I would love to do that. That's wonderful. We will be definitely talking after this show. Loud, you've been awesome. Thanks again for coming on.
All right, man. Anytime.